Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravana Chari Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravana Chari Yamuna Tiravana Chari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Damodara Shri Radhe Jaya Radha Damodara Shri Radhe Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvajakacharya Surasat to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvajakacharya Surasat to His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaja Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi Haripol. Okay, let me pull this up here. All right, good morning, dear devotees. Today we are continuing our reading on the Gancharad Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, The Science of God, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong. Yep. Chapter 12, The Perfect Society for Spiritual Classes. Today we're reading text 17 through 24. I believe 24 is the one that has the purport. But let's take a look. Yes. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vanaprastasya vakshyami niyaman muni sammatan Yan astaya munir gached rishi lokam ujanjasa vanaprastasya vakshyami niyaman muni sammatan yan ashtaya munir gached rishi lokam uanjasa. Yes. Vanaprastasya vakshami niyaman muni sammatan yan ashtaya munir gached rishi lokam uhanjasa. Would anybody like to chant the verse?
Vanaprashtaya vakshyami niyaman munisammatan yan ashtaya munir gached rishi lokam uhanjasa.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Vanaprasthasya vakshami niyaman munisammatan yanasthaya munirgached rishi lokamuhanjasa.
Expert. Anybody else? Vanaprasthasya, a person of the Vanaprastha ashram, retired life. Vakshyami, I shall now explain. Niyamanam, the rules and regulations. Munisammatan, which are recognized by great munis, philosophers, and saintly persons. Yan, which. Astaya, being situated in or practicing. Munihi, a saintly person. Gachet, is promoted. Rishilokam, to the planetary system where the seers and munis go. Maharloka. Uha, O king. Anjasa, without difficulty. Translation. O king, I shall now describe the qualifications for a vanaprastha, one who has retired from family life by rigidly following the rules and regulations for the vanaprastha. One can easily be elevated to the upper planetary systems known as Maraloka. Text 18. Na krishta pachayam ashiyad ashkritam chapya akalata agni pakvam atam va arka pakvam utaharet. A person in vanaprastha life should not eat grains grown by tilling of the fields. He should also not eat grains that have grown without the tilling of fields, but are not fully ripe. Nor should a vanaprastha eat grains cooked in fire. Indeed, he should only eat fruit ripened by the sunshine. Text 19. Yais charu puro dashan nirvat pet kalat koditan labdhe nave nyadhe purunam cha parit yajet. The vanaprastha should prepare cakes to be offered in sacrifice from fruit and grains grown naturally in the forest. When he obtains some new grains, he should give up his old stock of grains. Text 20. Angya artam eva sharanam utajam vadri kandaram shrayeta hima vyayagni varsha katapasat svayam. A vanaprastha should prepare a thatched cottage or take shelter of a cave in a mountain, only to keep the sacred fire. But he should personally practice enduring snowfall, wind, fire, rain, and the shining of the sun. Text 21. Kesha Roma Nakashmarshu Malani Jatilo Dadat Kamandaval Agji Danda Valkalagni Parichandan. The Vanaprastha should wear matted locks of hair on his head, and let his body hair grow, nails and mustache grow. He should not cleanse his body of dirt. He should keep a water pot, deerskin, and rod, wear the bark of a tree as a covering, and use garments colored like fire. 22. Charedvanedvadash abadan ashtova chatro munihi Dvavaikam vayata budhir na vipadyeta krichtrataha. Being very thoughtful, a Vanaprastha should remain in the forest for 12 years, 8 years, 4 years, 2 years, or at least 1 year. He should behave in such a way that he will not be disturbed or troubled by too much anxiety. Too much austerity, I believe the word was. Austerity. 23. Yadha kalpa swakriyamam vyadihi bhir jarar vyadibhir jarayata tatva anvikshikvayam va vidyavyam Kuryad anna shanadikam. When because of disease or old age one is unable to perform his prescribed duties for advancement in spiritual consciousness or study of the Vedas, he should practice fasting, not taking any food. 24. Atmayam agnir samaropya Sanyasyaham mahatmanaha Sanyasyaham mahatmatam Karaneshu nayasyat samyak Sangatam tu yatarhataha. He should properly place the fire element in his own self, and in this way give up the body affinitely, by which one thinks the body to be oneself or one's own. One should gradually merge the material body into the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and sky. Purport: the body is an effect of cause, namely the 5 material elements: earth, water, fire, air, and sky. Earth, water, fire, air, and sky. In other words, one should know perfectly well that the material body is nothing but a combination of the 5 elements. This knowledge constitutes merging of the material body and the 5 material elements, merging into Brahman. In perfect knowledge means understanding perfectly that one is not the body but is spirit soul. Merging into Brahman in perfect knowledge means understanding that one is not the body, but a spirit soul. Jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumritam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadadmayam Dadanti Swav Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sargajatam Saguna Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishwakamvitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tatta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Nasuta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhye Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. I won't read all the translations again, but I'll just read this one for 24. He should properly place the fire element in his own self, and in this way give up his bodily affinity, by which one thinks the body to be oneself or one's own. One should gradually merge the material body into the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and sky. Hare Krishna, everyone. So we're hearing about the Vanaprastha ashram and what that entails, and we're hearing about the goal achieved from the Vanaprastha ashram, which is actually the same goal that's achieved from not only the Vanaprastha ashram but also the Brahmacharya ashram, the Sannyas ashram, and the Grihastha ashram, which is to give up one's bodily identification, and we don't hear about it in this verse, but go back to Krishna. Our material body will merge into the 5 elements from which it came: earth, water, fire, air, ether, or sky. And the spirit soul will be transferred to a different situation, ideally back to the spiritual world, to attain our Sarup Siddhi, our eternal position with the Supreme Lord in the spiritual planets, with Krishna, and whatever body or whatever planet that might be. Maybe that's Krishna Loka, maybe that's Goloka Vrindavan, maybe that is Dwarka, Ayodhya, any of these places in which our eternal position is in the spiritual sky. So this, talking about the Vanaprastha ashram, this verse in particular, text 21, has always stuck out to me. I remember reading it the first time, and something about this verse is very sticks in my mind. I guess it's the description of when I was reading this the first time, when I was reading Bhagavatam the first time, going through this and reading, trying to imagine this, Vanaprastha in the forest with matted hair, long nails, and you don't cut your nails and they actually get really long and they start to curl. So I was imagining these long curly nails and this matted hair with a beard and dirty disheveled clothes, or wearing, here it says garments colored like fire, so bright, saffron colored, I guess would be the color, but I was imagining a tree bark, the inside of a pine tree that's red, and wearing that on his body. And I was thinking, wow, this is really far out stuff. I can't imagine somebody doing that. And of course I was living in the city in Wellington, and the only they have a really nice forest park there in the city called I can't remember, I think it's Victoria Park or something, and it has a lot of bush, a lot of forest, dense forest in this park that's in the city. It's quite big, maybe I don't know, a mile up and a mile in length or something, maybe 2. And I was imagining, like, someone like one of the grihastas quitting their ashram, going to this part of the forest, and then growing out their nails and wearing tree bark. And I was like, wow, that's just so strange to do such a thing. But and it is, I mean, in the Western world, like, we can't imagine, here, like, you go to the, like, there's not really any big forests in, this area. But imagine, you come to Gita Nagari and you just see, like, you're going on a japa walk around the property and you see someone come out of the forest and they're just, like, covered in deer skin and they've got matted hair and a matted beard. And you're like, oh, are you okay? Do you need some help, sir? Like, that's what the mind would go to, instead of it being like, oh, this person's just performing vanaprast. I guess because in the Western world, this description would seem a little strange. Whereas, of course, if you go to the holy dhams, you see this all the time. People are sitting by Radhakund or Shamkund, or they're sitting by Govardhan Hill, or they're living in the depths of the forest and they're practicing vanaprast. They live in caves, and they're doing this. They're performing these austerities, so that they can become detached from their body and give up their body, and be able to attain a higher destination, knowing that they are in fact different from their bodies. And I was listening to this lecture, this nice little, like, snippet from a lecture that Dasi Prem Prabhu sent me yesterday by Mangalacharna Prabhu, I believe his name. No, maybe Madhu. Oh gosh, I forgot. Mangalacharna. No, I don't think it's Mangalacharna. Madhu. Maybe Dasi Prem can remind me. Is this Madhavinder Puri? Thank you. I think that's because it's just doing the Mangalacharna. Okay. Madhavinder Puri Prabhu, who is this really exalted brahmachari that just passed away recently. And he was he was talking about, like, austerities we should perform. And of course, in the modern day and age, Krishna, excuse me, in this current time frame that we're doing, maybe going to the forest and performing vanaprast in the way that it's describing here in Bhagavatam might not be so practical. For one, we don't really have those kinds of forests that are suitable for, like, going to in this western part of the world. We have national parks and things like that one can go to, but there's all these rules, like, free camping, unless you're completely self-sustainable, you can't camp here, otherwise it's illegal. So there's so many complications, whereas, like, maybe in India or in an earlier time frame, these things weren't around, so it would be easier to do. But nowadays, to actually go to the forest and perform austerities like this would be actually kind of tricky, because there's so many things that need to be considered as well. But something that this Prabhu was speaking about in his little, like, the snippet from a class, was that actually there's so many things, different types of austerities we can go through that will help us achieve the same goal. Of if the goal is to become just free from the bodily conception of life, then there's so many things we can do, so many different austerities. And one of the main austerities he was talking about, he said, I can't remember how he described it, but, like, the easiest way basically is doing Sankirtan, book distribution, or any type of Sankirtan, because it really helps you realize, like, I am not this body. Like, there's no pleasure in this service on the bodily platform. It is like, it's all happening on a different platform, like on the spiritual platform. You're out there standing on the street for hours in the cold, in the heat, and just, like, trying to get people to give donations for books, for, of course, the highest spiritual literature, but from the material sense, just, like, trying to haggle people for money. And there's, like, there's not a whole lot of pleasure in it that comes on the bodily platform, if any. But on the spiritual platform, of course, it's a very blissful service, and it's one of the fastest ways to go back to Godhead, because you're directly serving Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan mission by going out there on the front lines and then talking to people who are totally distressed and giving them Krishna consciousness, like presenting them Srila Prabhupada's books, which are going to change their entire lives, which is quite nectar. So yeah, anyways, there's lots of different austerities one can perform to have the same knowledge of being free from the bodily conception of life. That might, in any ashram, might be slightly more practical than text 21 here, growing out the nails and the hair and all this sort of stuff. Although that will definitely do it, I reckon. The goal of all the ashrams is actually to become free from the conception of bodily entanglement and to realize Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that can be done in all the ashrams as well. As my spiritual master says, that can be done in all ashrams. In some ashrams, it's just more expensive than others, like which I always find quite funny and true. Some ashrams, it just is a little bit more pricey than other ashrams. But that realization can be achieved in all ashrams. And even in the Vanaprastha ashram, not necessarily you have to be separated from your spouse. Let's say you've been married for like 50 years and it's coming up to the time when you need to take Vanaprastha, or you're feeling like, okay, now it's ready to detach a little bit, excuse me, from the material sphere, and I want to go in solitary place and just like, I want to just focus on my bhajan, or I want to just be a traveling preacher and just travel and preach and share Krishna consciousness with others. My spiritual master also gives the example that not necessarily if you've been married to someone who's also super Krishna conscious, for male or female, that you need to leave the other person in order to do that. Sometimes the other person can actually assist you in your own vanaprastha. And he gives the example of His Grace Vaikshesha Prabhu, has his very exalted wife that is helping him become more Krishna conscious, and he's similarly helping her become more Krishna conscious. And they're both an incredibly exalted couple. There's many examples. Same with Kripamoya Prabhu and his wife. They've been married for a very long time. So yeah. And they're also, because they're more married, they are able to reach maybe a broader section of people because of their relationship in that way. So anyways, not going to dwell too much on that. The main points I wanted to focus on was that in every ashram, one can become free from the bodily entanglement of life and become Krishna conscious. And there's many different ways of doing that. Many different types of purification one can go through that'll help realize that we're actually not this body, and that the whole purpose of this life, this existence, is to remember our relationship with Krishna and to leave our body in consciousness of Krishna so that we can go back to Krishna. Or that we can be of use to Krishna in some way, that we can just keep doing devotional service, whether in whatever form of life we might be in, that we just pray in the next life, please let me also be able to serve you in some way, if it's your desire, my dear Lord. So, this is important because attachment to the body is so strong, not only for us, but for those who love us as well, like our family members. And I've been thinking about this point a lot recently because, as most of you know, my grandfather passed away maybe 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. And he was a very nice man, not definitely performed heaps of sinful activities, but it's just very interesting watching how my different family members reacted to his passing away. Thankfully, it was very quick. he just had a heart attack in the middle of the night as he was walking to the bathroom and fell unconscious on the ground. He was 98. So, but the family was all very upset, crying, weeping. They were like holding. It was very much like how you read about in Bhagavatam, in the pastime of Ajmil, how the family members are like crying over the dead body of the fallen family member, weeping as they're like holding the hands of the person, but very conscious that the person is no longer there, which is always interesting, I find, because we can be so attached to the person, the physical body, this is how we know this person to be. But actually, we don't even really know who the person is, because they're the spirit soul. They're not even that body. That's just the covering. We're just interacting with like this covered being. As my spiritual master said to me recently, he's like Grihastha ashram is like two mystic embodied souls trying to figure each other out. And that's what it's like. Just like you don't really actually know the other person, you just know the covering. But still, you've known them for so long, that you've known that covering for so long, that's to you who they are. So it's just very interesting. And then the body, gets cremated or buried. And my grandfather got cremated, and then they have the ashes, which is like it's like sand, but like very heavy. And something that's a little gross that I told Dusty Prime I wasn't going to talk about, but I thought it was very interesting anyways. If you have hip replacements or knee replacements, or you have golden teeth, or things put in your body that aren't made of the 5 elements necessarily, like the earth, water, fire, air, and ether, maybe they're made of metal or something like that. So of course those things don't burn. So then they get distributed, they get given back to the family members. Like, this is what's left. Here are your ashes. Here's your knee replacement, metal cap knee replacement. Here's some golden teeth, So, and then these things are like, cherished by the family members. Like, oh, the last remnants of my so-called, lover, my husband, my father, whatever. Like, these things are like held as sentiments. And my mother was telling me, she's a scientist, she's a physics teacher. She's very fascinated by all this sort of stuff. One of her best friends is a biology teacher. So her mother was like, here, honey, this is for you to remember your father. This is his knee replacement. It's like the part of his knee replacement, like the metal cap they put in his knee. And she was so sentimental. She took it, she polished it up. Now she has it in her classroom to show all of her kids, this is what a knee replacement, this belonged to my father. And I was like, wow, that's really weird. I mean, it's cool. I don't think she's going to listen to this class, so I don't feel bad talking about it. But I was thinking, oh, that's really like strange thing. It's like when you go to the bathroom, when you pass stool and you're like, okay, flush that. Don't have anything to do with those gross remnants of the body. But now these gross remnants are what people are attached to so much. So I just thought it was very interesting. Wow, this bodily conception of life is so strong, like that these things that were like inside someone's body are now cherished. Like, oh, this belonged to this person, so dear to me now. So anyways, I was just listening to my mother tell me all this stuff and was quite amazed. Like, wow, people are very attached. Like, this is some serious attachment to this living being. So much so that they are attached to even these things in the body. And then just yesterday also, my father was telling me that he's getting a knee replacement. And I was like, okay, hopefully it doesn't happen to me, that I don't, when my father leaves his body, I'm not like, oh, the knee replacement, I'll hold it, I'll put it on my table as a mantelpiece or something like that. Anyways, so we want to perform austerity so that we can help ourselves become free from this bodily identification. And austerity is good because it puts us in a condition where we naturally start to identify differently from our body. Like, oh, this material body, it has so much problems. I want to act on a higher spiritual level. And book distribution is a really nice way of doing that, because it's, unless you're extremely into standing for long periods of time, it's usually not very enjoyable for the body, but you can easily transcend that uncomfortableness and get to a different level when you get like really involved in the service and start really praying to Krishna. And Krishna uses you as an instrument in the Sankirtan service, and you can actually completely forget that you're even, freezing cold or standing on the street. Sometimes when I'm taking care of Mother Kalki, she'll tell me about her book distribution days when she used to be a book distributor in Boston, and how they would stand on the shoreline in Boston in the middle of winter. She said it was so cold, like blowing freezing cold ocean air at you. And they would stand there, and it would be so freezing, but it would be very blissful, just distributing books to people. And I remember in New Zealand, the winters there were very cold and wet. And I remember even in summer, sometimes we would go on Sankirtan and go to Palmerston North and stand outside the mall in the same place for like hours and hours and hours. But it's just so blissful once you get into it. You just completely forget that you're, that you've been standing there, or that you're hungry, or that you're cold, or that it's warm or cold. So it seems like it's the same as this Vanaprast. You want to expose yourself to these elements, but you want to also be engaging in some Krishna conscious activity as well, that helps you transcend the uncomfortableness of the body. I was never much of a Sankirtan devotee. I mean, I did it. I was always one of my services, but I'd much prefer to be in the kitchen than on the street. I felt like that was more my element of being able to assist in the most productive way. But I remember one time cooking in the kitchen. It was for a soul feast at Wellington. And like most Hare Krishna kitchens, there's no ventilation, and or very poor ventilation systems in place. No windows that lead to the outside world. So I was in this kitchen, and we were cooking. I had all the ovens on, had all the fryers on, and then all of a sudden there was a power outage, and the exhaust fan stopped working. And we were deep frying, baking, boiling, so there's all this steam and smoke that was coming up from these fryers. And I went out to the management. I was like, "You guys gonna help me out here? It's like a sauna in the kitchen right now." And they were just like, "Oh, sorry, we're just doing our best. We, don't have a solution right yet." So I go back into this kitchen with the iPhone strapped duct tape to my forehead with a flashlight on so that I can see what I'm doing. And it's super hot, like very, very hot in the kitchen. And we're just cooking and frying. And I was with a few devotees, and we were like, "Wow, this is really austere. Like, this is very hard on the body, It's very hot. It's pitch black. There's just like a few flashlights going around the kitchen." And then we all just started chanting Hare Krishna, like intensely chanting, like a kirtan tune or something. And it just became like a really joyful experience. Like, it was still really uncomfortable, but because we were engaged in this service and we were determined, we needed to like cook this feast for this program, and we were in this like intense environment. Something about it just became really pleasant, and it's even like a nice memory now when I think about it. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that being one of the hottest times I've ever cooked in a kitchen for like a long period of time. But it was so blissful at the same point in time. So I'm just sharing some examples of different ways where I'm sure everyone can share some too, of times where you might have been like really austere, like either if it's mentally, psychologically, physically, but in a very austere condition. But if we're able to focus on doing some service or chanting or listening to kirtan or engaging in some Krishna conscious activity, then actually it's almost like you transcend that incredible austerity, and it just becomes blissful. Like, it just becomes a blissful activity that actually helps us advance in Krishna consciousness. Or it even gives us the memory of like, this was a very uncomfortable time and I'd never want to experience that again. So let me like use that memory as a reason to continue my Krishna conscious practice so that I never have to go through that again. In this little lecture from this brahmachari, he was also saying it's also very nice to never forget how we suffered materially. If we can always remember that that's how we suffered materially, then that memory of that suffering will help motivate us to always practice Krishna consciousness, and also to engage in more austerities that will help us get free from those conditionings. That'll be like the driving motivation. It's like, oh, I didn't necessarily want to, I don't want to suffer like I suffered before. Because at least if we're not at the stage of thinking, okay, I just want to serve Krishna and be engaged in Krishna service 24 hours a day, then at least we're thinking, okay, I just want to get free from suffering. And I know that if I do devotional service, that I'll get free from suffering. And yes, that is a material motivation, but better to bring those material motivations to Krishna than trying to fulfill them in the material world, which will just bring more suffering. So we think, okay, I'm trying to get free from suffering. I remember how much I suffered before. It was a very embarrassing life, full of humiliation and disasters, one after another. I don't want to go through that again. So let me engage in Krishna consciousness to the best of my ability. And we bring that material desire to Krishna, and then it gets purified, and we actually find, wow, I actually really like this Krishna conscious process. Let me see what else I can do to make this process more joyful. Oh, this is getting better and better as the years go on. Or I'm getting more purified as the years go on, but I'm finding that this process just keeps getting more blissful the more I engage in it. And then by doing this, over the course of many years of perfecting our Krishna consciousness, we'll eventually come to the platform where everything becomes joyful. Chanting becomes joyful. Reading becomes joyful. It's not like a struggle to do it. There's no like forcing the self to chant. It's just like, oh, I just want to chant Hare Krishna. Like I want to chant Hare Krishna. I want to do devotional service. I want to, and I will, I'll even put myself in a so-called austere position just so that I can do that, because it's what I want to do. I'm not there yet, but this is what I've heard from other people, other devotees who are more advanced than me. And then it'll just be like, that's all that we want to do. And then as the stages progress, as the different stages of bhakti progress, then we'll just come to a platform of pure devotional service. Where all we're thinking about is what we can do to please Krishna. And it'll become like a very loving relationship. I was listening to a class someone is giving, I think it was at the temple, I don't remember who it was, but they were saying, just like when if you first fall in love with somebody, and all you're thinking about is the person, like 24/7 basically, and you're thinking, how can I please the person? What could I do that'll like make this person happy? Or what could I do that'll like, make this person like me, or not even like me, but just like, I just want to just do something nice for this person all the time. And you're just always thinking about them, like this, young boy, young girl fall in love sort of stage. And that's what it becomes like when we perfect our relationship with Krishna. It's just like all the time we're just thinking about Krishna and how we can please them, how we can please him, and what we could do that would be most pleasing for him. And it's not like an artificial stage. It's actually very natural. And your body at that point in time, when you're in that stage of love of Krishna, it's insignificant. Like your bodily demands are completely insignificant. It's just like, I'm just here to serve Krishna. You don't even care if you're hungry or you're sick or anything. It's just all about Krishna's pleasure, what would please Krishna the most. And in the highest stages of the residents of Vrindavan, their love for Krishna, they're so absorbed in Krishna's love and loving Krishna and the pastimes and playing with Krishna and beating Krishna up, or pretending to be more superior than Krishna, or not pretending, they like feel like that because they're in such a high level of love, that Krishna himself has to intervene with his Leela Shakti potency to create situations where the cowherd boys will stop their play to have lunch because they haven't eaten all day, and they need to eat to be able to fuel their bodies. I mean, of course, their spiritual bodies, they probably don't need to eat, but in this pastimes of Krishna, he's Leela Shakti, creates situations, demons to come to stop the play, have a fight, and then have lunch, because the residents are so totally absorbed in Krishna Leela, Krishna's pastimes, Krishna the person interacting with Krishna, that they forget about their bodies completely, to the point when Krishna himself needs to be like, take the situation to his own hands and be like, okay, it's time to eat, or okay, it's time to go to sleep, we have to go home. So yeah, this is the perfection, how Krishna consciousness can be perfect, perfectly performed. This is the perfection. We get to hear about it in Srimad Bhagavatam and Krishna book, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar of Devotion. It talks about these, like the perfection of the bodily activities in Krishna's service. In Nectar of Devotion, there's a whole section about, like, in the spiritual world, what different kinds of like expressions on the face mean. Like, there's different kinds of smiles, there's different kinds of ecstatic laughter, there's different Sorry, I lost internet. Um, Anyways, I'll end class there.
Hare Krishna.
Hey, Paul.
Welcome back. I want my MTV, my Manupana Leela TV.
That's funny.
This technology, so unreliable. There's Krishna TV. We can perfect our Krishna consciousness. We can always see Krishna without interruption. This technology is just a cheap facsimile, but Yukta Vairagya. Try to engage everything in Krishna's service. There's a lot of benefits. Thank you for a very nice class. You took me on a whirlwind tour of many realms of Krishna consciousness and reminded me of many things and gave me a lot to think about. You know, it may be hard to imagine, but once upon a time, I in India, I lived um, very simply for a time, just a loincloth and a water pot was all I had. No shoes, no nothing, just my glasses. I had my eyeglasses, a toothbrush, a loincloth, and a water pot, and traveled all over, mostly in South India. I was in that condition at the Kumbh Mela. Many of us performing very severe austerities in the freezing cold in the month of January. Um, Very cold, ice coming down the Ganga from the Himalayas, bathing in ice water. Uh, there was one sannyasi there who had a down parka, but for us brahmacharis, there was no such facility. We were very cold. At night, in order to keep myself from freezing to death, to ward off hypothermia, I had to dig a hole in the sand and bury myself in the sand to protect from the raging wind. We were on the banks of not even the banks of the Ganga, but on a sandbar in the middle of the Ganga. The ISKCON camp was roughly below a train trestle. There was a bridge going over the Ganga. Um, and in the middle of the Ganga was a sandbar. And that was the location that had been assigned to the ISKCON camp. It was very austere. To get to it, you had to cross over a pontoon bridge, temporary bridge created by the military, and the sand was sopping wet. We were just inches above the water level of the Ganga, and Yeah, no blankets, no bedding of any kind at night. I just had to bury myself in the wet sand. It was warmer than the air because the sun heated the sand during the day, and that kept me alive. Srila Prabhupada was also there, and he chose not to remain there. Srila Prabhupada left. We were all stuck there for a month, for 60 days, actually, I think it was. We were, maybe it was less than 60 days. It was more than a month. Um, there was no way to leave. Um, trains were all booked, and Srila Prabhupada wanted us to be there to do Sankirtan. But he himself found the conditions to be too austere for it was affecting his health, and he, he was unable to do his translating work. Um, and so after 3 days, he left and went to Bombay. Um, the rest of us remained there, and it was extremely austere. But there were lots and lots of sadhus who also performing great austerities. They didn't seem to mind at all. Um, I was I was freezing, and but there are these sadhus in the same condition as me, just a loincloth and water pot, but they didn't have a goosebump on their body. They'd just be sitting in the wet sand, completely undisturbed by anything at all, bathing in the freezing Ganga, no disturbance whatsoever. Those same sadhus live in the Himalayas in the snow and ice, and somehow or other they are impervious to the conditions. I was not impervious. Um, I was actually quite miserable much of the time, but rendering service to Srila Prabhupada by doing Sankirtan was quite ecstatic. It was actually it was extremely ecstatic. It was an ecstatic time. And in general, I'll say that the time that I was living like that, as austere as it was actually the one of the most ecstatic times of my life. It was certainly the most peaceful period of my life, very peaceful and ecstatic. But if I were to try to perform those same austerities now, I don't know if I could survive it. Um, my life at this stage is also austere in many ways, but I'm not subject to freezing temperatures or blazing heat during the day. The temperature fluctuates. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but I don't have those problems. Um, I'm not, half naked, living in wet sand, barefoot, with nothing but a water pot. But my life is pretty simple, and my health is miserable, and my body is full of pain. But I have simple service that I do that involves a lot of reading, a lot of studying. Basically, I just read and study all day and all night, and write, and it's ecstatic, and I forget about everything that's going on. I I actually I get so absorbed. The absorption actually goes 24 hours a day. I go to sleep, and in my dreams, I continue doing the same work. I dream about studying and dealing with different issues, how to um, um, preserve this and that concept in writing, and sometimes my anxiety about how to express something is so strong that it wakes me up. Um, but I get really, really absorbed to the extent that I'm pretty much oblivious to the conditions, which are not so great. It's the bodily conditions are pretty rough, but Krishna consciousness works. It's very nice. It's very ecstatic, and I'm very satisfied just to study the books and to write. Don't want to do anything else. Um, I can't think of anything else that I'd rather be doing. I feel pretty grateful to be in this condition, that I don't have any other. I have other duties and obligations, but I'm unable to meet them. So I have an excuse to spend my time just reading and writing, and I'm really happy with it. Anyway, um, Vanapras. It's way past time for Vanapras for me. I don't know, more than 20 years past Vanapras time. But I'm still with my family. And there was a time when I actually attempted to leave family life. I packed up some essentials, just the things that I would need to survive, in a backpack. And for starters, I was going to just take off to the forested areas around Gita Nagari, and just get used to living independently for a while. And the night before I planned to leave, I collapsed. My health took a dive. I collapsed. I was on the floor in my room, unable to move for 3 days before my wife found me there. And it became clear that leaving home was not an option. I'm unable to survive without someone's help. So I'm dependent upon my wife. I refer to her as my life support system. She keeps me alive, and without her, I would have passed away a long time ago. So you do what you can, um, make the best of a bad bargain, and sometimes you can't do things strictly by the book. You have to do the best you can, and so I cultivate detachment. I live mostly, I'm alone. I have this little room. It's about, I don't know, Manapanalila. You know what the rooms are like in the cabin here. It used to be the schoolhouse, but there's, there's these little tiny rooms big enough for a bed and a few things, but it's very simple and austere. I got to share one bathroom with everyone else, and but I don't need more than that. I don't need anything more than that. Well, it's not entirely true. I I have my prized possession, which is my laptop is my whole world. It's my window into the world, but most importantly, it contains the Bhaktivedanta database, which is my service and my life. It's also my biggest attachment. I guard it with my life, but everything that I do is in the database, and um, so I can't imagine living without my PC. I guess I could do it, but I could get by maybe with just books. But books, when you are bedbound, is extremely inconvenient, and very hard to travel with can't really travel with a full library. But I have all of the books, everything, in one little box, sitting on a stand that kind of hangs over my head while I'm lying in bed. And I can access all of that and do a tremendous amount of work without going anywhere. Anyway, cultivating detachment. Um, I don't know if I've succeeded very much in realizing that I'm not this body, but I absolutely become absorbed in hearing and chanting to the extent that I forget about my body. I actually forget about sleeping. I forget about eating. I have to. I have alarms set to remind me to do those things because I forget about doing them, and I'm disinclined to do them because it interrupts my service, and I don't want to stop. My wife has to check on me and make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I don't. I'm like a little kid. I don't want to go to sleep at night. I just want to keep reading. And but I have to get a certain amount of rest, or my body starts to break down. But I'm pleased to see the extent to which I have acquired an attachment to the service that I do. It impresses me. Um, I don't remember making a deliberate effort to achieve that, but it just evolved over time, imperceptibly. And now, in retrospect, I look at what's happened and I see that a very substantial attachment has developed. I love to dive deep into the books. I love to deeply research various subjects, um, and it just completely consumes me. I don't want to do anything else. When I think about, some devotees aspire to go back home. And when I think about it, I think I don't want to go back home. I just want to keep studying the books. I like what I'm doing, I want to study and write what I've understood for the benefit of others, and I don't really want to do anything else. Um, I don't know. We'll see where it leads, but that's my report. I was thinking about these verses in Srila Prabhupada's purport, and um, one one issue occurred to me. Let me see if I can find that now. One thing is the discussion of grains, that one should not accept grains that have been grown by tilling in the fields, but also not eat grains that have grown without tilling. So what does that leave? Um, um, or One should not eat grains that have grown without tilling of the field, but are not fully ripe. So I guess if they grew without being tilled, but ripened, then that could be accepted. Um, There are other prescriptions in Shastra for accepting grains that have been left behind by the farmer, that have just fallen on the ground. You can collect that. Some sadhus go to the temple and collect whatever uh, grains, morsels of rice have been left over, and perhaps after washing pots or something in the pot washing area, there will be some grains of rice that have been uh, left behind after washing the pots. So some sadhus will accept that for their sustenance. Um, I personally do not care to subsist on fruit or roots. I have a profound attachment to grains. Grains and butter or ghee is, if I had a big material attachment, It's grains and ghee. I guess if I had to, I could do without it, but that's my big sense gratification. But so this question of grains. Um, Later it says to just subsist on fruit. Um, and I don't know that might work for some people. I find that I lose strength if I don't get grains regularly. Um, Matted locks. My Sika has actually become matted, and I don't like it that way, but I just don't have the time or energy to try to maintain it. It got matted at one point, and I tried to unmat it, but I have been unsuccessful, and I can't get any help with it, so it remains matted, and I'll probably leave my body with a matted Sika. Um, in India, I kept my head nicely shaved. I kept very clean. I did not grow my nails out. I have never done that. I've always kept them nicely cut and clean. Everything very clean. And Srila Prabhupada wouldn't have it any other way. He gave us very specific prescriptions for how we should maintain our bodies. Um, he never prescribed letting ourselves become unclean or letting our hair grow out, facial hair or otherwise, or growing nails. That's for other classes of sadhus, but Srila Prabhupada wanted his disciples to make a very clean presentation. There are some members of the Gaudiya Math who will grow their beard, um, especially for Chaturmasya. Srila Prabhupada did not like that. He himself never grew his beard. Um, some will say, well, there are pictures of Srila Prabhupada with a mustache, and Srila Prabhupada addressed that issue. He said that was before he was initiated. There was a time when he kept a mustache before his initiation, but ever since he accepted Srila Bhaktisiddhanta as his spiritual master, he never kept facial hair and kept his head shaved. Um, and he insisted that his disciples do the same. He even said that those who keep long hair are not his disciples. He wanted us to be distinct from the Gaudiya Math, where it's commonplace for um, devotees to keep a beard. He absolutely did not want us to do that, and if ever his disciples began to let their beard grow in, Srila Prabhupada would chastise them severely at times. He'd tell them that they looked dirty, and he would insist that they shave. Um, and those who would not comply, he would tell them that he had rejected them as a disciple. Although Srila Prabhupada also assured us he never rejected anybody, but he would say that just to scare and incentivize individuals who otherwise might not comply. Um, he wanted us to make a clean appearance, and he wanted that appearance to distinguish us from everyone else. Not only he wanted us to be distinct from the hippies, he wanted us to be distinct even from other spiritual groups, even other members of our own sampradaya. He wanted us to be immediately identified uniquely as his own disciples. So he wanted us always to make a very neat, clean appearance. Um, so I've tried to do that, and I've encouraged others to do that. I'm rambling. My gosh, it's past 8:15. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to ramble like this, but I want to thank you again for a nice class. You really got me thinking about a bunch of things. I haven't even tapped the surface of the flood of thoughts inspired by your class. But that's a little sampling. Anyway, Hare Krishna. Have a wonderful day of ecstatic Krishna consciousness.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for sharing. So nice to hear about your pastimes in India. That's pretty far out. I didn't know that. And thanks for sharing all your other realizations. Always nice to hear from you. Thank you, Desaprem and Hari Chakra Prabhu, for also staying on the class. We'll finish there. Gancharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo.
Hari Hari Bo.